What's going on, everybody? It's Rev. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Monster Hunter Wilds. In today's video, I'm going to be going over everything that you might want to know as a beginner with the bow. The bow is a very powerful weapon in many iterations of Monster Hunter, and in Monster Hunter Wilds, it is no exception. We're going to be covering pretty much everything, all the combos, all the shots, and some good practices in order to be as effective as possible. So let's get into it. After drawing the bow, you can go ahead and press L2 or right click on your mouse and keyboard, and you can aim down your sight of the bow. This will open up a reticle. You'll start moving a little bit slower, and then if you press R2 or left click, you'll go ahead and fire your normal shots. Something you might immediately notice is that the bow flashes every time that you fire. These are your bow charge levels, and they go up every time you fire an additional shot. As you level up your charge shot, the number of arrows increases. So by proxy, you're increasing your damage as you level up the bow, and in general, this is just a good rule of thumb. Furthermore, you can charge the bow by knocking an arrow and not releasing it by just holding R2 or holding left click. There are other ways to level up the bow, but we'll go ahead and stop there for now. This might come as a surprise to many of you, but the bow is a ranged weapon, which is also indicated by its effective range. If you're too close, you'll be dealing less damage. This is indicated by the neon orange reticle, and this is sort of like the effective range that you want to stay in. It goes pretty far back. By pressing F on the keyboard or circle on the controller, you can also do the power shot volley combo, which is a much slower combo, deals pretty significant damage, and furthermore, you can skip the first portion of that combo by doing your charge shot, which is an even better stream of DPS. By pressing R and F on the keyboard at the same time, or circle and triangle, you can do a dragon piercer, which is a charged piercing arrow that will go indefinitely so long as there's something to hit. So a really long monster can take a lot of damage from a dragon piercer if you are angled correctly. It's a nice combo finisher too. While charging, if you press R2 and circle plus triangle, you'll do 1,000 dragons, which is kind of like a power shot on steroids. This can also be done by holding right click and pressing R and F on the keyboard. Next, we'll go ahead and talk about some ways that you can spend some of your trick shot gauge, which is the gauge in the bottom right above the coatings. By pressing square or E after knocking an arrow with the charge shot, you'll ready a tracer. And the tracer gives you additional damage, as well as no way to miss any of your shots. However, all of your arrows are going to be flying in the direction of the part that you have attached the tracer to. You might be thinking to yourself, well, I'll just fire multiple tracers and get a ton of extra damage. You can unfortunately not do that, as firing off any additional tracers will cause it to detonate, dealing a little bit of damage, but not as much as you could get by just constantly firing at it. Additionally, you can spend some of your trick shot gauge on coatings, which can be accessed by pressing L and using triangle and X in order to scroll through the menu. You can also simply do this by utilizing your mouse wheel. Once you've selected the coating that you want to use, you can press triangle or R on the keyboard, and that will load it up for you and spend some of your trick shot gauge once you fire the first shot. Power coating is a fan favorite because it adds extra damage. However, the types of coating that you can use is based on the bow that you craft, and so you'll need to experience what all of them do altogether as you keep continuing to play the bow. So we've got our coating applied and we've got our tracer knocked. Let's go ahead and find out how we can generate more meter. By landing shots, you'll go ahead and build meter. By knocking an arrow and holding it, you'll also generate some meter. Just displaying some of the shots here. You can see that the 1,000 dragons and the dragon piercer don't really offer much in terms of meter, if anything at all. However, your charge shot and power volley do offer you a fair amount of meter. The power shot volley offers less and the charge offer more. Let's talk about evasion here for just a little bit. After knocking an arrow, pressing the dodge key will go ahead and activate a charging sidestep. After you have an arrow knocked any shot that you have knocked will go level up once. So if you are level 1, you can go to level 2 and then fire a second shot, so you can level up in 2 shots instead of 3. The charging sidestep can also maintain your charge as well. You can see that it just keeps flashing red over and over, and you can do this so long as you have stamina, which is kind of where your stamina comes into play, and this mechanic that I'm about to talk about comes into play. There is another property of this dodge that you can utilize by perfectly evading an attack. Once you discerning dodge, you will gain a little bit of trick shot gauge. You'll fully regain your stamina, as well as fully charge your bow to level 3. You're going to want to use discerning dodge as much as possible in order to keep your gauge well managed, as well as your evasion up. However, with your tracer up, some of the best DPS that you can deal is just normal shot, power volley. This generates less meter but deals more damage overall. In previous titles, you could do something called bow dancing, which is a great way to maintain your level 3 charge. And you can weave this even further by, let me get a little bit of stamina back here. We'll go ahead and charge level 3, fire power shot, something like this, where you can just maintain level 3 charge and keep going into your power volley, and that was a great way to deal some damage. However, it was discovered by another bow player that this was not necessarily the best DPS, at least in the beta. Knocking a tracer, doing normal shot, power volley while stationary was still a great way to deal a little bit more damage than bow dancing. It's a very simple and effective way to dealing a high amount of damage on the bow, but it also doesn't generate as much trick shot gauge as one might hope. There is one more move that I want to talk about in this guide, which is the arc shot, which is an AoE reticle, which you can move around with the right stick. And once you release, it will unleash a volley of arrows, and some of them, you'll notice, add some additional tracers. These aren't tracers for you to fire at and get additional damage, similar to the tracer. This is for your focus attack that you can lock onto and deal some additional damage, which is what we'll talk about next, the focus strike. Let's go ahead and get an arc shot here. When a wound is active, you'll be able to lock onto them, and you'll get a very fancy animation so long as you can see your targets. A volley of arrows fire out, and then you'll get a dragon piercer to line up in order to pop some more wounds for some additional damage. This is a great way to deal damage to all the wounds that are present on a monster if your team can't really get to them. While the arc shot is very good at adding some additional damage for your focus strike, it's not really worth using unless you have a wound present and you're locked on, and go get this special animation and get some follow-up damage on everything. It does significantly more damage than without the other wounds present. So I recommend only using your focus strike when those wounds are present. The tracer is just more so for like an arc shot to deal additional damage while a monster is down, and then you can maybe like go into 1,000 dragons, or potentially just a dragon piercer, something like this, to build up damage over time while you're doing other things. It's very common to use Dragon Piercer when a monster is down on the ground or sleeping, because you can line up the angle and get some really nice piercing. After a charging sidestep, if you press R or triangle, you'll be able to do a flying swallow shot, which allows you to LeBron James yourself into the air and dodge some attacks, or just add a little bit of pizzazz or a little bit of style to whatever you're doing, allowing yourself to keep a little bit of pressure up, as well as dodge some enemy attacks if they're coming your way. But I think, just to recap, you're going to want to keep your coatings up, you're going to want to keep your tracer up, you're going to want to use your normal shot, power volley as often as possible. You're going to want to discerning dodge as much as possible in order to keep your stamina fresh and keep your trick shot gauge up. And just maintaining all those resources should add up to dealing quite a bit of damage When you get a knockdown, you can chuck down a dragon piercer, chuck down some arc shots, and overall, the bow is just a lot of fun. The bow it's a powerhouse. It feels good to play when everything's in motion. You do some crazy dodges with the LeBron James. It's just a good time. So hopefully this was a good crash course on the bow. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Go out and shoot some monsters, and I hope you have a good one. Thank you guys so much for watching. More weapon guides are on the way, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.